Yes, good eye. That is not an Alberg 37. That is actually a Hunter 30, and the boat that led up to my first boat. I found her up in Olympia. She was listed with Capital City Yacht Sales in Olympia, Washington, at the end of the Puget Sound. And later on I should find the Alberg there too, luckily enough, because this boat got me in touch with a really good broker. His name was Terry, so he found the Alberg for me. This boat, however, we liked, and Leah liked it a lot because it was clean and it looked relatively new and modern, and little did I know about sailboats, that wasn't probably the best boat to cross an ocean with. But we made an offer and we got a surveyor involved, and that was a good thing, because it turned out she had massive structural damage. About 3 to 4 feet on her port side towards the transom below the waterline got oil canned. There was no supporting bulkhead and the hull gave in. Unfortunately, I have no footage from this. But it was significant structural damage, and the deal was off and back into the water she went. So we did not end up buying this one. There she is. That was Time Spinner, my Alberg 37. And Terry found it for me, like I said, and he rang me up and said, man, come on up here again. I have a really great boat for you. It's turnkey ready. If you look for a blue water boat, don't look any further. Have a look at this one.
Already where he fixed the undercoat, you can see the darker, oh no, that might have been a jack stand, never mind. That's probably where the jack stand was sitting.
Well, it looks actually way better than expected.
Well, it's a very solid hull too.
The survey went well, and the boat was in overall good shape. The hull, like Terry said, was really solid, and she just came back from an engine overhaul up in Port Townsend. So I made an offer, purchased the boat, and here I was now. For the first time in my life, I actually owned a sailboat.
I like this boat better anyway.
Before they put the boat back in the water. Oh, you already knew. But this is the boat I was talking about. This is your dad gave.
I was super excited and couldn't wait to explore the beautiful shorelines of the Pacific Northwest. But before I take you any further along in this story, let us have a quick look at her design. Okay, so here she is, the Alberg 37 sloop with her specifications. As you can see, the boat was built as a long keel masthead sloop, so foresail goes all the way up to the mast top, and then we have a long keel with an attached rudder, and the propeller is protected within between rudder and keel. Classic, I like it, very solid and strong and safe. Construction was made from hand-laid fiberglass and was laid on very thick. So in the bilge area, I think we're looking at about 3/4 of an inch or something, maybe even a bit more. So it's insanely strong, really heavy build. The ballast is made from lead and it is encapsulated into the keel. So they basically put the preformed keel ballast into the hull and then laminate it over. So there's no keel bolts or anything like that, no attachments, which is great. I like that. And she was first built in 1967 and then remained in production until 1988. There was a Mark I and Mark II build. So the boat, they built 248 of it, and it was made by Whitby Boat Works Limited in Canada. So yeah, she's an old Canadian girl. The designer was Carl Alberg, a Swedish naval architect, I believe. He was born in Gothenburg, Sweden, and then immigrated to Canada and had a very successful career as a boat designer. And one of his other famous boats that he started out with, I think, was the Alberg 22, and then he made his way up and the boats got bigger and bigger until he made the Alberg 37, and that, I believe, was the biggest design that ever made it from pen and paper to actual production that he made. So the boat, as you can see, is about 37 foot long, a little longer, and you can see metrics always here to the right hand side. And the length of the water line is significantly shorter, with only 26.5. That is because she has this classical New England design with those gracious overhangs, and it looks really beautiful. It gives her a very classic appearance, very pleasing to the eye, I think. Beautiful. The beam is kept narrow with a little bit over 10, and her sail area is a bit shy of 650 square feet. Draft 5.5 is really good. That is right down the money, I think, where you want to have it. Not too shallow, not too deep. It will suffice. It's really good. Displacement's 16,800 pounds, and out of that the ballast will be 6,500 pounds. And that brings her to a ballast of displacement ratio of 38.69. So anywhere from 35 to 40 I think is ideal for a cruiser or racer. Most real pure racing sailboats will be over 50, and total cruisers probably less than, I don't know, close to 30, that you can load up a little bit more into it. So being right there between that, a little bit shy of 40, I think is ideal. Two numbers are made red because not necessarily it's bad, but they are talking points. A lot of folks that are more fond of modern designs with fin keel and spade rudder that go well in light air will probably not like that very much, and would claim that this boat is merciless, overbuilt, heavy and slow because of the sail area to displacement. Well, I cannot attest to that really. When I sailed up the Puget Sound, I actually passed by a regatta there north of Olympia, and there was not much wind, and a lot of them went into irons and were just sitting there while I was still making way. So I think the narrow beam allows that boat to still go okay, also in light winds. Believe it or not, it does it. And if you look at it from the other end of the spectrum, let's assume you want a blue water boat, capable on a budget. Don't look any further. That's the Alberg 37. It has a reputation of having crossed numerous oceans and having circumnavigated a couple of times. So yeah, there you have it. I mean, it's a proven design. It did it, you know. And such a heavy built boat, 4.3, allows with a narrow beam for a very high comfort ratio, as you can see here. So and that also with not too much sail plan up means, well, you know, at some point you always got a reef. I know, but for the most part, if you sail her balanced, she will do it, because the sail plan is, the center of effort is low enough, the sail plan in itself is balanced very well. I think it's great. I had the sloop, and there's also a yaw rig, but even with the sloop rig, she sailed straight. Really good. That's not a problem. And that comfort ratio of close to 40 again allows her to slice through the waves, and allows for a very sea-kindly motion. She will not bounce off the waves, she will slice right through it like a hot knife going through butter. So that's what you want. And last but not least, a very important number for me is always a capsize screening formula. If worse comes to worse and you have that rogue wave hitting you broadside and the boat actually capsizes in a storm, the question would be, will she come back up? Will she righten herself? Anything above 2, not so sure. 2.0 and higher is questionable. The higher it goes, the worse it is. So anything less than 2 is good. You know, it gives you a high safety margin. It means the boat is narrow enough, deep enough, has enough weight down below to have that arm to basically bring her back up. And so here we are looking at a 1.59, and that is really as good as it gets. That is phenomenal. So you can take a lot of comfort in that number. You can see she was made there were 2 different designs made, a Mark I and a Mark II, throughout the production run. The Mark I was in production until 1971, and then they started the Mark II. And the Mark I basically And the biggest difference, I think, is she has no inner liner. So everything, all the bulkheads and so on, are glued directly to the fiberglass hull from the inside. That means you can utilize every square inch of that boat for stowage without cutting into a liner or something. And out in the cockpit, you can see already she has these beautiful wooden coamings, and then there's a locker aft and lockers to port and starboard. Here's a hookup for an emergency tiller, and she got wheel steering, and she got these wooden cockpit coamings, where the Mark II has already a molded cockpit coaming, but the rest is kind of the same, except for the lockers are a bit smaller, the lids there and so on, but all overall kind of similar. And she has a high bridge deck, which is nice. Stepping down below, the Mark I has two port and starboard quarter berths on each side, where the Mark II has actually to port a pilot berth and then to starboard an L-shaped galley with a big icebox and gimbal stove and everything. Moving forward in the boat, Mark I has then to port the CT arrangement and to starboard a long galley, again with icebox and gimbal stove and everything you need. And then in front of the seating arrangement CT area, she has a head, and on the other side vis-a-vis a hanging locker. And here on the Mark II you have like an L-shape CT with a table that folds up against the bulkhead and has also a fold-out leaf that makes for a really generous seating arrangement here, with another CT to starboard. The head was made a little bit more spacious. It's wider than on the Mark I, and across that again is that hanging locker that has also been made wider. I think the V-berth on the Mark II though was shortened a bit in favor of that design, of the wider head I assume. And the storage in the little drawers there when you come into that V-berth cabin is also shorter. So Mark I V-berth I think is just a little bit longer and more spacious. And what I really liked is she has a door that you can close, so it really separates the boat into two different cabins, and the V-berth is huge. I mean, you can stand up there upright and do your thing, and it also has a ginormous big hatch that allows you with some fold down steps to actually climb through the forward hatch onto the foredeck and do your thing, you know, handle sails and everything. So I like that a lot. And other than that, all the water tanks, grey water and holding tanks and what have you, and diesel tank I believe are down in the bilge where it's supposed to be, where it's heavy and low. And yeah, so that was all super well designed by Alberg. It's a very logical boat. Everything in that boat makes perfect sense. So that is why I liked it so much. She was designed also later on as a yawl. So that rig is also available. That's why I mentioned that in the beginning. I had the sloop, so I cannot say much about the yawl. So please, if you know anything about it, please leave a comment down below. Will be much appreciated, because I'm curious about that. Back then I was a very novice sailor, and that rig kind of scared me. It was just one more mast to take care of and another sail to trim, and I felt like the sloop was easier for me to handle. So, but nowadays, I mean, I can see the advantages of a yawl rig over a sloop. And you can see the position of the foremast here is the same on both boats, and then I think they shortened a little bit the boom on the yawl rig and then placed the mizzenmast just behind the cockpit coaming. So if it was placed behind the coach roof up front here, it would have been a catch, obviously, but so this shorter mizzenmast here at the very end behind the cockpit makes it a yawl. And I would imagine that it allows the boat to be trimmed better, that you can make a sail straight easier. And I would imagine also it brings down the center of effort a little bit in the sail plan. I'm not quite sure about it. I also noticed that the square footage is just a bit more than on the sloop. So it makes a difference. So if you have this rig, please let me know what you think and how you handle it, if it works for you. Yeah, so again, the major difference between the Mark I and II would be the inner liners. There was also, besides the floor molding, headliner that was made from fiberglass and a fiberglass toe rail on the Mark II. So there were a few differences. And in the beginning the boat was equipped with a Volvo Penta MD2 Bravo. I just worked recently on an MD1 Bravo on my Bianca 27, our current project that we have. And it's a great engine, so this would have been the 2-cylinder version of it, and it had 23 horsepower, and then they moved up to the 11 Charlie with 27 horsepower, and then there was also a Westerbeek 4-cylinder 107 engine available. And in my boat it was a Perkins, actually, a Perkins diesel 4-cylinder. And I'm wondering if that is Westerbeek later on, or if I don't know. If you know anything about it, please let me know, leave a comment down below. The Puget Sound was a really ideal training ground for me. As a novice sailor, I sailed in waters that were well protected, but yet had an abundance of wildlife. There was lots to explore, never-ending shorelines. It was extremely beautiful. Although it was almost already the end of the summer, we had plenty of sunny days left, and sailing out there was just absolutely beautiful. We had a great time. I think one of my fondest sailing memories is when I had my daughter Leah taking the helm of Time Spinner, and she was steering this big sailboat with very little supervision, almost all by herself. And she was only 5 years old at the time. That was great. Good job, Leah. I was a very happy boat owner because the Alberg really outperformed all my expectations. Whenever I told people that I was basically teaching myself how to sail on a 37-footer, they thought I was crazy and asked me why I wouldn't use something smaller instead, maybe like a 20-footer or so. But I had bigger plans and decided I better learn the ropes on the same boat I wanted to cruise on. The Pacific Northwest has so much to offer. There's so much to discover, like its never-ending rugged shorelines and secluded beaches. It seems like there's always the next adventure right around the corner. Recently, when I went back to work, I found an old hard drive of mine somewhere in storage, and it had all this great footage on it, so I figured I really want to share that with you guys. I thought it ties everything together nicely, the reason why I called the channel Sailing Good Old Boats. That's why I had 7 sailboats over the last couple of years. And it's not that I'm filthy rich and can afford to collect them, it's actually the other way around. I never could keep them for long enough or bring them with me when I had to move for a job. As you would expect from the design, the Alberg really sails well balanced, is easy to trim, and has an extremely sea-kindly motion. She feels also very secure, even when the going gets rough. Unfortunately, as always with my boats, I couldn't keep her for very long and never had the chance to take her really far. However, I can tell you with full confidence though, that I think she can be a really great passage maker. When it was finally time to let her go, I had her only listed for a couple of days before she was gone. And that was not much of a surprise. She is a really good old boat, after all. If you enjoyed today's episode, please hit that like button, or even better yet, subscribe to our channel. You can also support our productions by becoming a Patreon. Find the link down below in the description box. Take good care of yourself now, and we'll see you next time on Sailing Good Old Boats.